Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the growing intrigue around Braverman being sacked. Easy to see it as because she defied Downing Street last week with her article in the Times, but it seems the decision had already been made. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. Right, well, first of all, apologies for another video on this reshuffle. There's another twist in the tail. I was fully intending on moving on, but this just keeps going on. At first sight, it looked like Suella Braverman's completely off-the-wall behaviour last week forced Sunak's hand. He had presumably been planning a reshuffle anyway, but now needed to get Braverman sooner rather than later, and so advanced his plans. This made perfect sense. However, it seems that it may have been entirely coincidental. Reports emerging last night suggested that Rishi Sunak had approached David Cameron about the role of Foreign Secretary last Tuesday. David Cameron himself reportedly told staff at the Foreign Office that he'd agreed last Wednesday. It's also credible. There would have been details that needed to be sorted out to arrange the appointment. You can't just ring him up. Dave, mate, how would you like to be Foreign Secretary this afternoon? You know, the House of Lords Appointments Committee, we are told, was given advance notice so that they could approve it. Obviously, they wouldn't have had very much advance notice, but, you know, some. The financial arrangements had to be sorted. Cameron will not be taking his allowance for being a member of the House of Lords while he is Foreign Secretary. And he's going to have some of his prime ministerial allowance cut back as well. It's all been worked out in advance. But the interesting thing is that this was all being done before Suella Braverman wrote that article against the instructions of Downing Street, before she incited a mob to violence. She wasn't sacked because she'd undermined Rishi Sunak last week or because she was offending moderate sensibilities. The decision had already been made. Now, you may say, but Phil, the decision to appoint Cameron last Tuesday doesn't mean that Sunak was going to sack Braverman. Well, in theory, indeed, Cameron as Foreign Secretary could still have allowed for Braverman as Home Secretary, except that wouldn't have made sense. James Cleverly is more valuable to Sunak than Braverman. The idea that he would leave Braverman in place and sack or demote Cleverly makes no sense. Cleverly's got a fair amount of support in the Conservative Party and wider appeal than Braverman. He also behaves himself. Moving Cameron to the Foreign Office only works by not demoting Cleverly. The positions of Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary are considered of equal rank in government. They are described as joint third most senior member of the government. So Cleverly's move was a sidestep. It suggests that the decision to oust Braverman was taken already. That being said, there are a few little wrinkles. Like at the weekend, there were reports of intense activity from the Tory party whips to ascertain Braverman's support in Parliament. This was taken as a sign that Sunak wanted to know if it was safe to sack her or not. And you might think, well, hang on, if the decision had been made earlier in the week, wouldn't that have already been done? So that seems a little bit at odds. But it could be that the decision had been made and the whips just wanted to make sure that her latest antics hadn't shifted the dial too much in her favour. Some of you may know that Andrea Jenkins, a Boris Johnson loyalist, has loudly submitted a confidence letter to the 1922 committee yesterday. Every commentator on Twitter suddenly started saying, here we go, it started. I wouldn't get too excited. Andrea Jenkins is a bit of an outlier. She's not a leader. In fact, I doubt it's even true. I suspect she submitted her letter with the other 24 who were reported to have done so at the end of last month. There was a meeting of the New Conservatives, a sort of Tory version of the People's Front of Judea yesterday. Reports said that there were 20 people in attendance, either physically or remotely, and that the general mood was that they weren't happy about Braverman being sacked, but there was no suggestion that confidence letters should be submitted. Now, I mean, first of all, I would say, probably if 20 to 25 letters had gone in to Sir Graham Brady last month, I suspect a fair number of them would have come from that meeting yesterday anyway. So they're already in. But even if they'd have sort of said, oh yeah, we should put letters in now, it wouldn't add up to the numbers required. Like I said, there were reports that 24 letters roughly had gone in anyway. It's likely that some of those letters are from the sort of people that were at that meeting. And even, let's say there was no crossover in that Venn diagram, which would be ridiculous. But let's say, It's still not enough numbers to worry Sunak. It has to get up to 53. Like even 52 is not a problem. Obviously, then it's a little bit worrying because it only needs one more. But if you're talking about 40 letters even, it's not a big deal. Plus, the bottom line is that a confidence vote doesn't actually help anyone. Well, not in the Tory party. It'd be immensely useful to Labour. Doesn't help Team Braverman because they risk looking responsible for the election results. See, right now, as long as they keep their heads down and act, with a little bit of decorum, Sunak, in a sense, is playing into their hands for later. See, Sunak is taking a markedly different path to that which Braverman is proposing. The election will be a complete disaster for the Tories. In the aftermath, various groups will claim that the party needs to move in this particular direction or that particular direction. Whatever happens to align with their thinking. All of them will say, oh, the election results completely prove my point. And they'll all have very different points. Which group ends up winning is not at this point certain. But it is certain which group will definitely lose. The one saying that Rishi Sunak's getting his decisions right. Sunak's direction will definitely be considered to have failed when the results come out. As long as Braverman's posse do nothing to destabilise the Tory party, or are at least not seen with their fingerprints all over any chaos, they have a fighting chance of persuading the party that their ideas are the right ones. It won't be easy because, as I noted last week, a lot of Braverman's natural supporters are the ones who are going to lose their seats in the next election. All the more reason to not be seen as a rebel. She needs to tread a fine line between making it clear that she is opposed to Sunak's moves, but not in such a way that it blocks his moves. She has to be able to say that she did nothing to impede Sunak to try out his ideas, that she gave him full rein to do what he felt was right, even though she believed that they were harming the party's chances. I'd have been amazed if lots of Braverman supporters took Andrea Jenkins' lead. If they were all as stupid as her, Braverman would have next to no chance of ever becoming leader. Another thing worth considering is that there was talk that Braverman wanted to be sacked so that she could free herself up to campaign a bit more blatantly from the backbenchers. Now, if she were willing to challenge Sunak directly, in other words, to try and bring him down before the election, she wouldn't have tried to engineer a sacking. She'd have resigned in protest. Now, what she puts in her resignation letter might put a different spin on things. We're still waiting for that. But unless she does something to change my mind, this is how I read it. She wants to present herself as being very clearly opposed to Sunak's leadership, but in a way that's clear to the party but not the public. Publicly, she wants to be like a loyal Tory. She doesn't want to be seen as a rebel as such. If what she wanted to do was to be seen to be bringing Sunak down, she'd have resigned, written a very snotty letter of resignation, and then marshalled confidence letters against him. But that would be a high-risk strategy almost certain to fail. So she needs to be more subtle. Now, that being said, The Sun are this morning reporting that Braverman is threatening to release damning evidence about Rishi Sunak. So just because I think Braverman would be mad to try to bring Sunak down doesn't mean she sees it that way. What I would say is, in line with what I've just been saying, it's a very high-risk strategy, which could cost her everything. It would represent a full-on Prigogine-level coup attempt and could result in the same thing, although metaphorically in her case. I don't think Sunak's going to tell her to have a pizza party on a plane. It risks Sunak fighting fire with fire. I would be willing to bet that he has got way more dirt on her than she has on him. Sunak's dodgy dealings are almost certainly financial, and we sort of know about most of those. It also risks Sunak summoning the courage to remove the whip from her, meaning that she will not be able to take part in any leadership contest either before the election, because she won't be an eligible Tory MP, or after the election because she won't have been a Tory candidate and therefore won't be an MP of any description. And even if Sunak does nothing to fight back, it implicates her in the public perception of the party, because a Tory civil war will absolutely damage the reputation of the party. And she could be held partially responsible for the election results, ruining her own reputation amongst the Tory MPs who will be taking their seats after the election. Like, it's all very well appealing to party members. She needs to remember she has to aim for the support of at least a third of eligible Tory MPs to even have her name go to the members in the next leadership contest. Like, I wouldn't rule this out just being something the Sun have made up based on the flimsiest of pretexts. I mean, it really would not make sense for Braverman to do this. However, might be worth getting some popcorn in just to make sure, I suppose. Finally, there was one more weird addition to the whole affair it's worth mentioning. After I said that Sunak seems to have shuffled the culture warriors out of his cabinet, we then had the appointment of Esther McVey as a sort of minister against Whitehall woke. Well, this sounds like he's made someone a cabinet minister specifically to pursue culture wars, doesn't it? But I would say this. Esther McVey has held senior positions in government before, but not for quite a few years. She's not really considered competent. If I wanted to have a minister for culture wars, purely to appeal to the head cases, and I didn't actually want someone pursuing culture wars, I might appoint someone like McVey. She's a bit of an idiot. The chances of her actually causing any serious damage is fairly low. As far as I can tell, she's going to spend her time wandering the corridors of Whitehall, popping into offices and telling people to stop being so woke. She'll be delighted because she's in cabinet again after a 5-year absence, and Sunak can probably rest easy that she won't actually have enough of a profile to offend the moderate Conservatives that he's trying to woo back because she'll be so bog useless. Time will tell, but I suspect she's a paper tiger. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.